Imagine the American workplace for a second. What comes to mind? A corporate office setting? Maybe it's retail or the restaurant industry. But what if I told you that there exists a company whose sole purpose is to drain the humanity out of you and force you into submission? A company that claims to be as transparent as possible, when in reality there are dark secrets that hide within its walls, just waiting to be let out. A place where people are converted into lifeless working husks, forming the backbone of the company while the powerful exploit their suffering. A place where no one, and I mean no one, can really hear your screams. Now, of course, I'm talking about the unfiction series Blue Horizons. But isn't it so funny how, just for a moment, it almost sounded like I was describing a real place? Now, I love me a good little slice of corporate greed in the morning. It's like my cup of coffee, you know. It really gets my blood pumping. It's great, love it. Okay, so to give a little bit of context to what we're talking about here, Blue Horizons is essentially, it's an ARG on YouTube, and it's about a really weird and, in my opinion, corrupt organization with a lot of shady shit going on. There's a lot of shit going on there. Okay, a lot. And so the first episode in the series, and a lot of the episodes in general, are kind of framed as this corporate introductory tutorial on how to present yourself in the workplace. Yay, corporate bullshit, yay. And so the first episode is actually a tutorial teaching employees how to smile. Only in this case, it's all wrong. It's not good. The first video on the channel immediately starts off with an uncanny photo of a woman smiling. I don't know about you fellas, but she looks like she got the Debbie Boone facelift going on. Seriously, that's what happens to you. And again, the video, it frames itself as a tutorial on how to smile, but it does so in an uncanny way, and you'll see what I mean.
When joining the working force, one must connect to one and one another by the means of social connectivity. This connectivity exists on at least 3 tiers. The most basic of these tiers is a smile.
So one of the very first frames that we get in this video is of what appears to be a sobbing employee forcing himself to smile, which implies a lack of consent going on here. You know, just a little, I mean, come on now. You didn't have to tell me twice. I already smile like that. All right, trust me. You don't want to see it. It happens though. And I think it's interesting here that they're using this frame as a demonstration of what a smile is supposed to look like. I don't know if that's something that kind of slipped by the editor there, or maybe that is the editor. Maybe he wanted that to be in the video. I don't blame him. I'm sure a lot of editors are feeling the same way right now. And so the narrator goes on after this to describe smiling as the most effective way of plugging in. Purposeful use of robotic electronic language here. It's very interesting how the narrator continues to use very detached, dehumanized language, if that's even the right way of putting it. And then for a split second, we get shown a frame that has a monitor in it. But on the monitor, the name Joe can be seen if you look very closely. And we're gonna hear that name again later on, but I just want to make a note of that now. So moving on, the narrator in this video discusses the concept of graduated networking, and he describes it as the spectrum of happiness and sadness. He says that smiles exist on a spectrum and describes them as a difference of electrical activity in the hippocampus. He mentions a guy named Bo Harrison as being a researcher from the late 50s on this concept. And then immediately after that, he says that Bo Harrison's work ceased immediately following the incident. Not much is known about said incident, but it's giving big bite of 87. It's giving bite of 87, or maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part. Now, the narrator then states that one must use more electricity when making a good connection with someone. and less electricity when making a bad one. Oh, okay, this makes sense. I just gotta, I gotta rip my breaker out of the wall and take it with me every time I'm preparing to socialize with someone. That just makes sense. I just gotta plug in, plug in. Now, this forced smile that you see on the screen here, he describes this as being ideal face placement, Debbie Boone facelift, and to use this for meetings. See, this is the information I needed when I used to work in a call center. See, why weren't they giving me this stuff, huh? Why wasn't anyone there to teach me this? If I wanted that promotion, all I needed to do was just... Now, the next activity has the viewer, presumably an employee. Sorry guys, my cat, he's practicing the concept of graduated networking. If you hear him in the background, just try to ignore it. He's learning. He's learning. But yeah, the next activity in the video, again, it has the viewer interact with different faces according to their expressions. And I'm just gonna let this clip play out for itself.
This is your opportunity to practice what we have learned so far. Please connect to the activity you see on the screen. Ready? Connect. 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 Nice one. Try again. Keep connecting. Keep connecting. Keep connecting. Good job. One more time. Change. 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 Excellent.
Oh, I did change. And not for the better. Okay, so the second video talks about the concept of language, and again, it just does it all wrong.
At some point in your preparation, you might have become familiarized by the sounds and letterings produced by your peers. This connectivity is called language. In this video, we are going to explore the sensual and sometimes painful experience of arriving at day-to-day language.
I mean, they're not wrong. I mean, that's kind of how we're communicating right now. If you think about it, it's the sounds and the letterings and. Now, the narrator says that language typically takes place through the exchange of cards or human bondage. And again, they're using very plain and robotic terms here. And I keep making note of that for a reason, guys. There's a reason. I'm not just hyping this up. There's a reason. Next, the narrator talks about the origins of communication, and they state that it comes from the Cambrian period. And they immediately play a computer-generated sound of what communication would have sounded like in the Cambrian period. Have a listen. And then the next clip shows what communication sounded like after the Cranberry period. Have a listen. Now, this implies, the last clip specifically, implies that this is what communication is supposed to sound like now, because I'm assuming we're not in the Cambrian period anymore. I'm assuming we've moved past that, so I'ma say it. It's all robotic to me. Yeah, they ain't human. Whoever made this video is not human. Okay, moving on. The video then explains how language broke up into many different parts and presumably other languages. And then the narrator states that there are 3 main languages, the most common being direct, and of course, they mention that this is what is fed to children from their primary nourishing units. That's a really visceral way of describing mom and pop. But in all seriousness, this is a very detached way of describing 2 parents and a child. Very weird. It's almost like the narrator is hesitating to describe them as actual people. They're being very careful with their verbiage here so as not to humanize them too much, which is why it sounds very vague and alien to us, because it is. And then the narrator moves on to mention indirect language, which is used when making a copy. Copies in this universe are basically implied to be children. If you guys didn't already know that, you guys should have already known that. You didn't do your homework. Pay attention. Wake up. Wake up, classes is in session. And then the 3rd type of language mentioned is neutral grounding, which is explained in completely nonsensical bullshit. Have a listen.
Neutral grounding can be used for the transmission of operable and inoperable transcontinental interactive establishmentism perpendicular to the logarithmic exponential duration over time previously articulated by the 30-60-90 SOHCAHTOA.
You see that? That just made that, yeah, that was it. Hope you memorized all that. Okay, now it's practice time. A weird image pops up of, he looks like he works at a Staples. I don't know. That's probably the most normal looking guy I've seen so far, actually. Never mind. Not weird. Very normal and healthy. Alongside the image, a pop quiz shows up on the screen, and it's not really revealed what the correct answers are supposed to be. Have a watch.
Answer the following phrase using direct language. What more do I need than money, food, and happiness? Good job. Now let us try indirect. Answer the following phrase using indirect language. In my time of need, will my loved ones come? Superb effort.
Now, the first question kind of implies that all a human needs to be happy is, well, money, food, and happiness. So basically me. You know, I mean, I don't need much to be happy, guys. I'm simple. You know, I'm like a plant. You know, you just feed and water me, and I'm good. Now, this reveals that whoever is making this program only thinks of humanity in very simplistic and detached terms. It's almost not really able to form an emotional connection with what it's talking about here. Now, the other question shown here is pretty open-ended, and again, there's no clear answer to it here. It makes me wonder what happens when you get the wrong answer, in all honesty. Like, what happens? Now, we are instructed to talk to Joy in the next clip using neutral grounding. The scene opens up to a seemingly empty room. The only thing showing is an office desk and 2 computers.
You did it.
So, is Joy the computer? Or maybe she's the office desk. We wouldn't know. I'm not trying to make assumptions on it. These are just thoughts. These are just thoughts that I should have kept inside my head. Okay, episode 3 is a message from the CEO, and it's just It's a rolling cube, and it was a pain in the ass to translate, but this is basically what it says. We here at Blue Horizons prioritize teamwork, and our core product is collective problem solving. So as of November 5th, 1998, all employees found to be engaging in union activities will be immediately terminated. This is pretty average stuff here in America. This is, yep, been there, done that. 9 to 5. Now, this implies that some form of corporate tyranny is taking place here. Yeah, no shit. We all knew that. Employees are being completely devalued and dehumanized, either to be replaced by something else or to be converted into some sort of working machine, almost, beaten into submission, that sort of thing. Now, as the video zooms out, in my opinion, I feel like the cube here almost looks like an eye. Something's always watching. Okay, part 4, or episode 4. The video discusses handshakes. And now you might be asking yourself, well, this is simple. I mean, how can you mess up a handshake? I'm so glad you asked. It describes handshakes as hand-to-hand manipulation, and that it's important for energy pathology, again, with the electrical machine-like term. Now, Joy is introduced as the demonstrator for this activity, while conveniently not showing her face. She will show the next 3 chapters of how to do a handshake. Oh, boy, I can't wait. Let me get out my notes here. I don't have a pen. Maybe I can use a phone. That'll work. All right. Go ahead, narrator. What's the first step? Now, the narrator states it's important to have at least 10 fingers for this activity. If not, then you would need to speak to a higher up. Interestingly, when Joy holds up her fingers, the numbers are all out of order. I tried seeing if they correlated with any words in the alphabet, but I couldn't quite figure it out. He's doing it again. He's practicing neutral grounding. So proud of my boy. In all seriousness though, I couldn't figure out if these numbers correlated with words of the alphabet or if it was some other code. So if this does in fact mean anything, and if anyone's able to figure it out, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Now we start with a gentle thumbing, and the narrator states that we need an unclicked hand in order to do this. Okay, well that's very simple. This feels so rotten. The narrator then tells us to use our counter-submissive hand to stroke our partner's thumb. The narrator says that we need to stroke the thumb until it's warm, but not to charge the thumb. Okay, well that's easy. Just fondling a person's thumb, nothing weird about that. The narrator then states that thumbing is a natural instinct that starts a few months into our childhood. He states that Bo Harrison, 50% known for his fatherhood, studied handshaking year-round every June. There's nothing like only being known, 50% for your fatherhood. So what's the other 50%? I mean, just look at his face, guys. Doesn't that just exude warmth? Like the warmth of a father's love? Don't you trust him? Wouldn't you want Bo Harrison to tuck you in at night? And wouldn't you trust him to put food on the table? Maybe I'm Bo Harrison. Now, Harrison was strangely fascinated by the concept of submission. The narrator then instructs the viewer to find a matching submission shape, I guess, according to this diagram here that's shaped like a triangle. The viewer is told to find this shape for encouragement. So I don't know who this video is being made for. I don't know if we're being trained to be more submissive or if we're being trained to be more dominant, but both are equally terrifying in my opinion. Now we return to Joy. The narrator instructs us to use our thumbs as a pivot point and twist from there. And then we are told to twist. I'm sorry, but right there, Joy was just going at it. She was having a fun time. Now for the next part of this video, we get a message stating that particles of submission are not to question. For the remaining particles, please observe. So I guess this next part of the video is for a more dominant viewer to watch. Okay, so I am I do self-identify as a Giga Chad, so thankfully I do get to watch the rest of this video. I thought this video was going to be cut short for a second. Now the narrator explains that hands always click when activated. After he explains this, we return to Joy, and then this happens.
That sounds like a click to me. Let's check in with Joy. Fantastic! That looks like a successful handshake to me. Good job, Joy. Now it's your turn. Please allow 1 to 5 hours to practice with your nearest neighbor.
You know, I know we're talking about a really scary corporate greed style ARG, but honestly, this is something that the average chiropractor would probably have you do. Oh, what's that? You're getting some joint pain in your wrist? Just cut it off. Cut it off. It won't hurt you. It'll grow back. What? Where did I get all this information from? Shut up. Shut up. Okay, episode 5. The video opens up to a room filled with employees, each with a business card for a head. They quickly disappear, and then Joy appears on the screen. I don't think this is the same Joy from before. I don't know if you guys picked up on this already, but it's very clear that a lot of the employees are just given the same names by default. At least in my opinion, that's what's going on. And this gets confirmed later on in the series, so it's not even just my opinion. I'm just right. Okay, I'm right. Now, Joy introduces herself as the CBL of Blue Horizons. She then talks about an incident that happened in the company during the winter trimester. I'm just going to play this clip out here.
It has been brought to our attention that at Blue Horizons winter trimester, we had a company situation go critical. Our board was gravely disappointed in the involved parties, as we were disappointed in ourselves. To say we are sorry would be an understatement. So we've decided to respond with loud actions rather than loud words, as our team works to answer 2 questions. What happened? And how do we let this happen again?
Joy then talks about the steps that the company took to prevent those incidents from happening again.
In the meantime, you may have already been informed of our newly implemented proactive measures, including competitive hours, punishable scanning violations, ranked lunch vouchers, and a triple cycle on Baylor fluid.
Again, I think it's intentional here that we're not supposed to know what any of this stuff means in a way, because it's very similar to how corporations actually communicate with people. They do it in a very inhuman way, and yet they forget the fact that the average person is just not going to be able to connect with it, but they don't care because money. Joy discusses how the company values transparency in a very disingenuous corporate way, and then we get a lovely proverb from our Lord and Savior, Bo Harrison.
Photonics, in an age wrought on by an avid surplus of elastic decimeter output and startling causation of establishment gerrymandering, is only a millimeter on the yardstick of time.
Thanks so much, Bo. Or should I call you Pops? We then get that stereotypical tower analogy from Joy, where you can't have a steady tower if you don't have transparency, blah, 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 blah. She shows how Blue Horizons has a lot of transparency, and a bit too much if you ask me. I mean, I don't know. I don't mind me a little bit of a shady corporation here and there. You know, it makes things more interesting. I like to be on my toes. I like to second guess everything that my employer tells me, okay? It makes my life more interesting. And it makes things hurt more. She then discusses ways that employees can reveal their deepest, darkest secrets, such as the I'm sorry boxes and the secrecy department. Joy mentions the non-secrecy treatment after this. In exchange for 25 basement tapes, Joy then shows her own transparency treatment, which is essentially, if you guys don't know what that means, she's talking about how she was punished for not being transparent enough. Have a watch.
Because of my exemplary use of line 4, I circumvented the non-transparency treatment in exchange for 25 basement tapes. In keeping with the theme of transparency, this was my transparency treatment.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Now, after this, Joy introduces Joe, who is receiving non-transparency treatment. According to Joy, Joe mistakenly printed in color. Shit! That little bastard. Fuck. Sick it to me. And unfortunately, he did not report this to his higher-ups in time. This is what happened to Joe.
Remember what our CEO said about photonics? It's that time. In the name of transparency, this is the treatment for anything that threatens our tower. That is what happens if you don't use line 4.
Now, interestingly, at the end here, we see that credit is given to Joy 20 and Joe 58. Again, confirming that there are multiple Joys and multiple Joes. They're just all given the same labels. Now, this implies that each employee is being treated like an easily replaceable commodity. Now, the next video is about dress code. However, right when it's about to play the tutorial, the video glitches and cuts to another Joy sitting at a computer, seemingly doing nothing. She then gets a call from Joe, and the conversation seems very robotic. Now, I'll let the rest of the video play out here so that you can kind of get a feel for what's going on.
Hello? Well, hello, Joe. How's your day going, fellow coworker? I know, I am buried in maximizing customer-centric synergy through holistic feedback methodologies for optimized service paradigms. The usual. Well, I would love to grab lunch. What were you thinking? Burger Barn, jam and tuna. Mexican. How about we get some tuna stuffed tomatoes? I'll meet you in the lobby in 5. Great, I'll see you then.
Now, it seems that her phone calls are being graded by something, but it's unclear what they're being graded on. And again, I think this is a nod to the stereotypical call center environment, how if you don't follow that script and if your calls are not exactly under 20 minutes, you're gonna get dinged and then you're gonna get, your pay cut and all that stuff, which is a very corrupt business model, and I feel like that's a little bit of a nod to that. Now, after that, the video then cuts to what appears to be the uniform tutorial, where an employee explains how clothes are now plant-based, and he says what is easily my favorite line from the whole series so far.
Go green, get clothed.
Okay, now if those words are not engraved on my tombstone, I'm not saying I'm gonna hurt anyone, but let's just say I'm not dying. Now back to Joy. She gets another phone call from Joe. However, it seems that Joe is confessing something rude he said to a coworker, to which Joy replies.
Oh, hi, Joe. What can I do for you? Unbelievable. Are you serious? You said that to him. Well, Joe, I hope you dialed line 4 because that was completely inappropriate on your part. It is important that Blue Horizons maintains a safe and welcoming environment. Let us remember to uphold the corporate spirit that transcends the boundaries between the labyrinth of memos and the ever-shifting landscape of office harmonization. Wouldn't you agree? Great. I'll talk to you later, Joe.
Now, once again, we run into Uniform Joe, who is very harshly criticizing the other Joe for his one-of-a-kind outfit. I mean, look at him. He's dressed to impress. What is there not to like? We then get a list of all the banned shades of white and all the approved shades of white people can wear. Okay, me personally, I take great offense to the inclusion of atomic white on this list. If you could just take that off, thank you. Now we cut to another scene with Joy doing Dickie McGee's acts at her computer. Love you, bitch. Yeah, you keep doing that. Fuck them, fuck that company, fuck that call center. She's sitting at the computer while manifesting that she's actually being productive. She's not. And then suddenly she gets a call from Joe, who she says sounds different. Have a listen.
Toner Sniffing Management, this is Joy speaking. Joe? Is that you? You sound strange. Is this about that silly union effort that you keep poking at? I told you that unions are like sneaky raccoons rummaging through a company's garbage bins. Joe, you're scaring me with all this nonsense. Absolutely not. I have principles, as a loyal employee, as a God-fearing woman, and as just a person that cares about this company's well-being. Even if a union were to take out our 70 hours a week. So I don't want to hear anything else about unions, Joe. Do you have something work-related for us to talk about? Joe, I don't have time for this. I have a mountain of toner to sort through. I didn't know that, no. Don't have to scream. We agreed to never discuss this. It was specifically outlined in the HR paperwork. Our copy is only 9 years old. What on earth would possess you to think of it like a corporate asset? You consistently prioritize this company over the team. You know, you claim to be such a great colleague, but every opportunity you've had to demonstrate that, invariably you have some sort of corporate obligation. And as the perpetual clock of corporate life ticks away, every minute reallocated, you strategically distance yourself from our shared emotional investments. I'm merely an undervalued asset to you. I am nothing 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 to you. I am nothing.
Who are you wearing? Who are you wearing? Who are you wearing? Who are you wearing?
Now, this to me is a very powerful clip for a number of reasons. One being the fact that there's some very obvious symbolism being drawn here about how corruption in the workplace leads to employees oftentimes feeling or being devalued, overworked, and treated like machines rather than human beings. Joy here came to this realization after a heated argument with Joe, who's later revealed to have some sort of secretive relationship going on with her. They even mention having a child together. I don't know why I put quotation marks around child. A copy. That's right. Let's just call it what it is. A copy. Now, this further complicates the situation for them, obviously. I also want to take note of the images that appear on her computer screen and that they sort of correspond with what she's saying. At one point during her conversation, we see a bunch of tall men in suits standing in a hallway, and then we see a strange face with a missing eye. This could be a representation of the corporation and its little goons spying on her conversation with Joe. Obviously, this implies that she's never really allowed to act like a human at the end of the day, at least not without being watched. Strangely though, the next clip shows Joy acting completely different. She seems to have diverted back to her original self, or as I see it, her fake self, her facade. Over the phone, she and Joe express how they've been thinking about each other. However, Joe states that he wants to end his relationship with her, but Joy believes that they should put off the decision. I'll go ahead and play that clip out for you guys and then we'll discuss.
Greetings. Joe, how was your work trip? As expected, your ideas are valued. I had thoughts of you as well. Our situation is uncertain indeed. We may need to cease our association. Very uncertain circumstances. Despite all that's happened, you know, I would really hate for us to part ways. How about we delay our decision for now? What do you think? Excellent. Great talking. Also, how about we try Mexican for lunch? You know my particular liking of ethnic food.
And that look of despair on her face at the end really says it all. Now, here are my final thoughts on the series so far. Overall, I really think there's a number of ways this series can be interpreted, both in a literal and a symbolic sense. First things first, there's a very obvious theme of corporate greed and corruption going on here, which is plainly laid out in the third video, where Blue Horizons literally threatens to terminate all employees participating in union activities. Then, of course, this is hinted at throughout the whole series through the dehumanizing language that is used to describe people and basic human activities. Hell, I mean, even the children are described as copies here. And lastly, I think the fact that all employees are either referred to as Joy or Joe shows how the company simply views these people as company assets, as Joy in the 6th episode seemed to feel deeply upset about. Now, the other more literal theory that I had in mind was related to artificial intelligence and how it has not only taken over the workplace, but potentially the entire world. The way in which the tutorials in the beginning of the series were describing things definitely seems like how an AI would learn human behavior. Of course, it's definitely uncanny and not perfect. I mean, there's even several typos scattered here and there of very basic words. Nevertheless, it still feels almost like a machine that's trying to act human. Also, if you guys remember in the first episode, there was a computer shown with the name Joe on it. In my opinion, I feel like this could be a nod at the fact that the employees are somehow machines that have basically gained sentience. Who knows? All I know is at the end of the day, here at Soupy Soup, transparency is one of our core values that we always strain ourselves to